So the first thing we need to do was get some power into this thing so we can actually turn it on and see if it works. It uses a proprietary 3-pin connector, which you can see here, which has these 3 wires and looks like this. That is the negative wire, the one with the white marking on it. The directly opposite one on the outside is the positive, so that one there, 12 volts positive, and then the middle one is not being used, so we're only needing to connect to these 2 outer pins. I said, as I mentioned just there, it's a 12 volt supply that it takes, which is normally fed off the back of another hi-fi unit, like a kind of receiver unit that goes with this thing, which I do have, but I don't want to use for my hi-fi just because I've got a better amp and I've got these nice tape players and stuff, and I kind of want to integrate into that, which is kind of the whole point of this. The first kind of hurdle was to figure out how to, I mean, yes, I could have just cut the wire and just sort of directly soldered on either a barrel jack connector or like just straight onto the wires from power supply. Kind of wanted to keep it original as possible, just because I've had this turntable a long time. It belonged to kind of my parents before that. Whilst it's not a valuable turntable, it's got some sort of sentimental value, and also when I'm doing this sort of stuff, I just like to try and keep things, you know, as original as possible, just because I think it's better than kind of messing with everything. Anyway, the solution I came up with was buying some of these connectors from eBay. I brought a few different ones. These ones worked out to be more or less the right size. They start off looking like this. So what I've done is I've snipped off this little clicky thing because we don't have a thing for that to clip onto on this connector. I also removed the middle wire, the black one, because I don't really need it for anything. And what I found out is that basically with a bit of finagling, well, not even that much finagling, these two will fit together. Like the spacing of the pins is far enough apart, and also the size of the pins themselves, which you can see in there, are, you know, about right to go in the holes. So that connects up nicely. On the other side of that, again, this could have been wired onto a barrel jack, it could have been all manner of different things. I've got these little barrel jack things with terminal connectors on them, which I think I got free with some 12 volt power supplies, but they're super useful because you can just wire stuff up really easily and it just tells you which side's which. So I went ahead and followed the connections back from where this joins on, and worked out which of these wires would be the 12 volt and the negative, and then wired them up to the positive and minus positive and minus and negative terminals on this thing, so they line up with the power supply that I'm going to use. This worked really nicely, wasn't a big deal at all. Doesn't stay on that great, so I usually hold on with a bit of tape, but it does make good connection and it all works really nicely. Okay, so I've got it connected up to, well, I've got the adapter now connected up to a 12 volt power supply, and then obviously connected onto the turntable. It's quite a handy one. It's got a nice little switch on it, which I think is quite useful for this, because otherwise there's no power switch on this thing, because as I say before, it was managed, all that sort of stuff was managed through the receiver it came with. So moment of truth, is this going to work? Oops daisy. It does. So I'm just going to stop that now before it gets carried away. I've kind of already had a little play around with this, and there's a couple of faults that I've identified, which we're going to go through next, and then look at trying to repair. Okay, so I've got it hooked up to the rest of my hi-fi. It's plugged into my Technics amp down here, and I've got a record on there to test. Bit of Vangelis, quite a good one. I haven't heard it in a very long time, so it'd be good to get this working something here, which is another reason why I've been looking at this record player. So there's a couple of mechanical problems. Just unlock the tone arm. So first things first is the Q lever, this thing. When this is flipped in the, I can't remember which position it is, I think that's up and that's down. When that's flipped back there, this arm should be lifted up like that and moving, so you can move it freely. And then obviously to lower it, you would press that and it would come back down again. So something's gone physically wrong with that, which we'll get into in a sec when we open it up. Looks like there's possibly a bit of damage here, plastic damage that might be related. We shall see. So the other issue is kind of in a similar area. It's to do with the auto start stop. So when you press start, what should happen is this platform here should raise up, lift the arm out of its rest, move onto the record, and then let it drop gently onto, you know, wherever you want it to play from. But currently what happens is if you press start and it's in the cradle, it doesn't have enough kind of upward movement to lift it above the lock in the cradle, and then it just sort of stops when it gives up. So if I do that again and give it a hand, you'll see what the other problem is, which is that if you do lift it off the cradle, then it's hanging too low and it scratches across the side of the record as it goes. So let's give it a little hand. See how it's like way too low and just hits the side of the record. Right, I'm going to stop that because I don't want to damage it any more than it already is. So that's one big problem. And then the stop, if you do the stop while it's playing, it's a similar issue. It doesn't lift it high enough and it either drags across the record or it just doesn't move properly. So that's definitely one big issue. I guess more so than the Q arm for me, I guess, the Q lever, sorry, because, you know, there's always scope just to manually lift these things. If you're skipping tracks, I think it's just as easy that way, really, isn't it? But I would like to have the start button to work, just to cue things up nicely, and also the stop and also the auto stop when it gets to the middle, so it doesn't end up playing the paper or just looping around for like 3 hours. That would also be nice, and those things are all linked together in this little system over here. So yeah, that's two of the things we're up against. The third problem is to do with the sound. So I'm just going to get this playing and put it on a track. Any track will do. Oh, didn't like that. Let's try that again. Maybe do it this way instead. There we go. Okay, so it's playing now. I don't want to have it too loud because I don't want to annoy my neighbours and also want to talk over it. But we were having an issue before where one channel here we go. So I'm not sure if you'd hear that. I'm just going to turn it down for a sec while I talk. I'm not sure if you'd hear that, but I held the phone near the speaker. And what's happening is basically on one side, on the right side, it's kind of intermittently cut out and it's kind of distorted. So on the left side, I'll show you again. I'll hold this phone up my speaker. So it's nice and clear on that side, but then if we go over to the right side only, so if we go over the right side only, you can hear that it's breaking up, it's crackling, it's distorted. The thing I did notice about it though is, I'll just put it back on, is it's kind of rhythmic, and you notice the record's kind of, I think it's a bit warped. So I'm hoping it's either the record's warped, and I haven't actually got another one to hand right now to test it with, just because they're all packed away because I haven't had a turntable for years. And also I don't want to wreck a decent record before I've finished fixing it, just because I'm still a bit dubious. So it could maybe just be as simple as that, which I'm really hoping it is. The other main culprit is probably the cartridge or the stylus, the needle. It has been moved house with a few times and definitely has been dropped and kicked around, and I can't guarantee that the tone arm was always locked the whole time. So I have a suspicion that there might be an issue with that, rather than, say, the record. The other thing I guess is it could be some kind of adjustment to with the downward force, all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure how to adjust on that record player. That's somewhere to come back to. The left channel plays pretty nice though, which is a good sign. I can't imagine it's electrical within the turntable itself, just because there's just so few components, and as far as I can work out, it's all just resistors, which, I mean, they can go bad, but it's not like a capacitor or stuff like that, which is much more known to go bad or prone to go bad. And an inductor, which, again, I'm not sure would have gone bad with just being sat there for years, not being used. So yeah, that's kind of a rundown of the problems of this thing. So flip this thing over and it's time to get the back off. Pretty straightforward disassembly. It's basically a bunch of screws to take out. There's one here, there's one here, there's one over there, and so on. They're kind of marked arrows, which kind of implies that they're the only screws you need to take out, but in fact you do also need to take out the screws that hold the feet on. I've done 2 over here and there's a couple left to do. My particular one of these has actually lost one of its rubber feet, which is a bit of a problem, I guess, because they are supposed to be kept very level. So I might, depending on how it all goes, have to figure something out with that. Plus that also might be why the needle isn't tracking the grooves properly and giving us that weird kind of issue with one side being intermittently cutting out and distorted. So that's definitely something to explore later on. So in terms of taking the lid off, it just lifts right off like that, which is pretty straightforward. So in terms of the auto start stop issue, which was basically the lifting platform, as the manual refers to, it doesn't lift the arm high enough off the armrest to move it onto the record and then keep it kind of above the record. It kind of skates across the record once you get it off the armrest, and then vice versa when it's going off. It's caused by, again, an issue relating to this kind of spring here, which is, as I said before, attached to the back of the lifting platform, the thing that lifts the, let's see if we get it focused, yeah, there we go, lifts the tone arm up off the record. So how it works is as the record is started, you know, as you hit the start button, this whole assembly moves in, and you can see there's kind of a cam almost, well, I guess it is a cam on the back side of it there, which is actuating the lifting arm and pushing the lifting arm up off the stand and they're allowing it to swing across on the record. The cam is held down by this screw here, which, as you can see, the threads are like fully stripped on it. There's no sort of downwards force. So what's happening is when this is traveling along its path, which is essentially guided by the screw, it's not really, see how it's not like it's lifting the screw up and not sort of fully depressing. And then also it's causing a bit of a problem going back sometimes as well, which should be a pretty easy fix. I think all I need to do is essentially hold this screw in a lot tighter. So, you know, using super glue, I think is basically the plan here. And then once that's fixed, that'll hold that nice and tight, which will then allow the cam to fully depress the end of that little spring, like nubbin thing, which will push the lifting arm up all the way and lift it off the rest nicely and keep it above the record and stop it skating across the record and stuff. So that should be a nice, easy fix. The other issue is relating to the Q lever not working. Like basically when you flip the Q lever, nothing happened. It'd feel like it wasn't connected, and that was essentially because it wasn't connected. This is the Q lever down here, or the bottom of it, sort of the thing it hinges on. It's kind of hard to see. I'll see if I can get it to kind of focus. But there are little tabs. There's one you can see there, but there's also one on this side of the little frame. And what these tabs do is they should push a bit of plastic that's attached to this assembly. So when you flip the lever, it should basically depress, either push that down to lift the lifting platform up and therefore lift the arm up, or I guess not do that and be in the opposite position and just leave it down. But there's a piece of plastic that snapped off the end of the lifting platform, which I'll show you in pictures because it's kind of hard to see that there's missing, which basically means I won't be able to fix that issue, which is a little bit annoying, but not kind of the end of the world, because obviously I can still just pick the tone arm up manually if I want to move it across the record at different tracks. And if I get start-stop working, then that's kind of half the battle, you know, with playing a record anyway. Yeah, so, you know, first kind of impressions were everything was super kind of plasticky and janky, like 90% of the construction here is plastic. It's kind of a bit weird, like a bit mad looking, to be honest. Like, look how loose this is, and then this spring, look at this spring just kind of like wedged between those two holes at a strange angle. It works obviously, and then, you know, I guess better minds than me have designed this, but like I will say it just looks incredibly janky. Kind of reminds me of like 70s reel-to-reel tape recorders, and the fact that they just have loads of random rods and things sticking out at mad angles and all looking a bit crazy. Not a ton of electrical components in this thing. You got the motor, obviously. You've got a board here which has resistors on, which essentially controls the speed of the motors. These two trimmer pots are the various 45 and 33 speed adjustments, so you can make it faster or slower. And then you just obviously got the connections to the pickup over here, which go off out to the phono cables on the back. And then there's a little micro switch thing, which is part of the auto start stop system. It basically, at certain points in this thing's travel, which relates to how kind of far across, I guess, the record the arm is, then it will trip that micro switch and either turn the motor on or off, depending on if you're hitting the start or the stop button, or you know what you're doing there. One thing I did think was pretty cool though is kind of how everything just seems to run off this one motor. As far as I can work out, I don't know how, but somewhere in here, when that starts spinning, that's kind of what actuates a lot of this stuff. Obviously some of it's done with here, you can see that's just kind of manually connected and straight off the button. But I think a lot of the stuff to do with the auto start stop is essentially just powered off the same motor that spins the turntable. Which, I mean, obviously I know you guys, some of you guys have probably worked on turntables before, done stuff with turntables, and that's not news to you, but to me I thought that was a pretty cool sort of economy in design, I guess. As, you know, I've never really worked on turntables before, so it's kind of a new system to me, I suppose. The front does very proudly say Something about it being servo operated. See if I've got. Oh yeah, servo controlled. There we go. But I think it just means this is a servo motor, and this can, I guess the whole thing runs off that. So I guess that counts as being servo controlled. Although to me that seems a bit of a strange. Well, it seems to me possibly a bit of a stretch. I don't know. I'm not really that knowledgeable on these things, but I was kind of expecting another motor that would actuate all this, like an actual, I guess, servo of some kind that would actuate all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting, so I just thought I'd put that in the video for anyone wondering. I'll also include the link to the service manual and stuff for people who've got these, because it was useful. It is only 6 pages long, but it does list all the parts, and it has a good exploded view, which is how I figured out the stuff about that being missing. And you've seen the pictures earlier in the video, which is where I got those from. One thing that did throw me once I, opened up and was looking for problems, trying to figure out what was going on with the Q lever down there and the lifting platform assembly, all that sort of stuff, is this spring over here, which just seems to be dangling out the bottom. You see there's kind of a cog over there, which I'm not sure what that's part of, possibly part of the mechanism that as the tone arm moves over, actuates this assembly, which controls the start, stop and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be attached to, if that's supposed to be attached for anything, or indeed what it's for. I couldn't seem to find it on the service manual. I am aware that this turntable was worked on by somebody a long time ago now. I'm not sure what the issue was, so I'm not sure if that's like a sort of bodge repair that they've done and they just put something on there to hold something, or if that is indeed meant to be there. I have no idea. It just looks a bit weird just being on like boing, boing, boing. I had to resist the urge to try and attach it to that little stud down. Where's it? That little stud there. Kind of looks like it should go on there, but I don't think it does. We'll see if that makes any difference when we put it back together. Right, so we've got some super glue. I'm just gonna go ahead and try and get a bit down there. I don't want to glue any of the other components, obviously. And if I'm honest, I don't want to put too much in, because I kind of want to have the option to take it to pieces again if this doesn't work, or I need to do some other work on it. So we'll go ahead and get that screw in there, nice and deep, nice and tight. So I'm a little out of breath. I've just had to go to the shop to buy this, but it's like 27 degrees in the UK today. So yeah, it's not the best weather to be walking around looking for super glue. So yeah, that should hopefully take care of the issue with the auto start. So what I'm gonna do is give this like maybe 5 minutes to set or whatever. Then I'll go ahead, put it back together, and we'll give that a test, make sure that's working. So after I fixed the start-stop platform thing, I went on to test it again with a different record, just to see if we were still getting the right channel cutting out and distorting intermittently, because at the start of the video I looked at the side of this record and it was, visibly relatively warped. Like I said, I tried it with a different one and we're still getting the same problem, which I guess eliminates the record as being an issue. So I think it's possibly the stylus. At one point this record player was definitely moved without the tone arm being locked, and after I came to unpack it, I found this was like resting just down there somewhere. So I'm kind of hoping it's just that's got slightly damaged. It has also been in there for a decent amount of time at this point. I'd say at least 10 to 15 years. Not sure it's been used a ton, but it's been around. So I went and got another one off the internet, which this is apparently a suitable replacement for the one that's in here. So we'll go ahead and remove this and then put this one in. Looking at the manual, it seems like there's not too much of a trick to it. Apparently you've got to lock the tone arm, and then as far as I can work out from the picture, pull down and outwards. So we'll give that a go. Not sure how we'll see this on the video. Oh, there we go. I think. Oh yeah, there we go. That wasn't too hard. Once you see quite a bit of dust come out of there. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I'll move the arm out of the way. So that dust that's fell out of there, which is also possibly causing problems with this thing. It might be dirty and stuff. Like if you look at the needle when it focuses around there, is that focusing? Yeah. You can see loads and loads of filth. I'll bring that a bit closer. So, maybe that's been contributing as well. It might not even be just physically broken, it might just also be dirty. So I'll keep all of that for now. And then we'll try and put this new one in. So Visually it looks pretty similar, so hopefully it'll fit. Right, so we eventually got that on there. Definitely a bit of a struggle. I think the trick is to go in from below and hook that in and then clip it, which is a while to get that. I did notice there was a load more of this sort of filth that I'm guessing comes off records in and around there. I give it a little wipe with my finger before I put this on. I'm not sure how much difference that's going to make. So here goes the moment of truth. New cartridge in. This thing's fixed. The Q arm obviously I couldn't fix, we'll come back to why in a second, but let's see if now with the new stylus that we get a good playback on both sides of the hi-fi. So far so good, so close the lid. But if I pan it all the way to the left, that's nice and clear. Pan it all to the right, also nice and clear, no distortion. So I think that's essentially fixed at this point. So I mentioned earlier on there was the issue with the Q arm that I couldn't fix. I can show you exactly why now. It's the other way around. So if you look in underneath here, let's go reposition my camera. Oh yeah, there we go. So there should, whoops daisy. So there should be a extra bit of plastic there, which this arm pushes on, the switch thing pushes on, but you can see that's snapped off. It looks like it's been glued already once before, so I don't think that was me at any point while I've owned this. I think that might have been a pre-existing problem that I didn't really notice or kind of forgotten about. Another thing to look at, I want to show you quickly, is just the sheer amount of filth that came out when I changed that needle. So that was just in the cartridge, I guess, with the stylus, I guess. Is it cartridge? No, in the little housing thing, this bit anyway. All of that filth, which leads me to wonder if the needle, this needle, the old one, is possibly still usable, just needs a clean. So I'm going to keep that and maybe give it a clean and see if that's you know, a usable thing. But basically this thing's fixed, which is awesome. So thanks for watching the video, guys. You know, really appreciate it. Like, it's obviously a bit of a different thing than what I normally do. Obviously it's mostly music, but yeah, if you like this sort of thing, let me know, because I've got a few old tape decks and stuff I need to fix, and this is a good excuse to get it done. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. Bye now.